Good afternoon and welcome to Lunch Break with the Rabbi. Today is Wednesday, the 10th of March, the 26th day of the month of Adar. And we welcome you to Lunch Break with the Rabbi, continuing our discussion, Decoding the Uniforms, talking about garments of our soul and of our body. Before we begin, let me just give you a little some housekeeping announcements. As Passover is coming up soon, please don't forget to sell your chametz, order your handmade matzah, reserve a place at your Seder or a Seder to go. All these preparations for Passover, and to learn more about different parts of Passover, visit our website, jewishally.com/Passover, and you can find all your information you need for Passover and how to get ready for Passover. Passover is less than 3 weeks away, so let's make sure we are ready for it. Getting back to our discussion of decoding the uniform, I want to share with you a story about a famous tailor by the name of Martin Greenfeld. Martin Greenfeld, I'm sure you heard his name before. Martin Greenfeld has been a tailor for many of the American presidents going back to the 1940s and the 1950s, making the custom-made suits. He had a place on the Lower East Side. They say a story that once Eisenhower came to make a suit by Martin Greenfeld, and he wanted to send him a message about how he believed certain war should end. And he put a bunch of notes in his pocket, and he told him what to do and how to end the war. But Martin Greenfeld tells a story about how he got into being a tailor. He says when he was put into when he was in the Holocaust and he was in Auschwitz, they put him to be one of the people that washed the clothing because he was a young boy. He was about 16 years old. They gave him the job to work in the laundromat and to clean the uniforms of the soldiers, of the SS officers. At one point, he was cleaning one of the uniforms of the SS officer, and because of that, the collar of his shirt ripped and got ruined. The SS officer went, of course, and beat him and threw it at him and said, "What do I need it for now? It's ripped." And he took it and he kept it, and he used to wear that shirt underneath his own shirt to keep him warm. But he noticed something very interesting, that when he would wear the shirt, he would stand taller. People would see that as if he's wearing an SS officer's shirt, so the people in the camp all of a sudden had a different respect for him. He felt different every single time he was wearing that shirt underneath it. And because he realized that clothing has such a power and can make such an impact on a person, on the people around him and on the person himself, he felt an unbelievable need to be able to make clothing part of his line of what he did. What we see over here is that though it is something external, but the impact goes much further. Judaism teaches us that the same thing that there exists for the body exists for the soul. Whatever is on the surface is also on the inside. Whatever you see on dry land is also in the sea. Whatever we see in the physical world mirrors what's in the spiritual world. So the same way we have garments that we as people wear and different layers of our garments, so too there are different layers of our soul and garments of our soul. As a human being, we have different things that are our garments. There is a home that we live in, that is also a garment. A home is an expression of what the person is. You walk into a home, you see the colors, you see the vibrance, you see the paintings. It tells you about the person that lives in the home. The clothing tells you about the person who's wearing the clothing. So too, when it comes to, and then the most internal part is the food. The food is not only on the outside, but it's on the inside. It internalizes within the person, but again, it is two separate entities. The closest thing that there is for the person as an external item that becomes internalized within the person is thought. So we have thought, speech, and action. Each one is a garment for the soul, but as they progress, they become a little bit further from the soul. Thought is the most intimate. Because in order, yes, it expresses what's in your mind, but you don't have to tell it to anybody. Speech, you articulate it, but you're not doing anything about it. It's words merely. Action expresses your feelings and your emotions, but it also creates a new entity. Action will be like food. Like a home. Speech will be like your clothing. and thought will be like food. Each one of these are garments of our soul and the way we express ourselves and the way our soul expresses ourselves. But the unique thing about garments are they're externalities that impact our inner way of thinking. Even though they're on the outside, but they have an impact on the person who wears them and on the person who sees you wearing it. You know, they say a story about an old villager who was on his way to go to the city to do some business. And he wanted to make sure he doesn't miss his stop. So on his way back home, he tells the guard, please wake me up at 5 o'clock so I don't miss my stop. In the same room on the train, he was sharing with an officer, with a soldier in the army. And they were both sleeping in the same room, on the same cabin on the train. The conductor comes and wakes the guy up 5 o'clock in the morning and says, listen, your stop is next stop. It's dark outside. He doesn't see what's going on. He quickly puts on the clothing that he sees there. He gets home. As he walks in, his wife looks at him and says, what are you wearing? Why are you wearing a soldier's uniform? He says, oi, the conductor woke up the soldier instead of waking me up. Sometimes we put on the uniform, we put on the clothing, and we forget who we really are. We think that just because we dress in the fancy suit or we dress in this type of manner, we automatically take on the modern way of thinking or whatever it may be in the clothing that we're wearing. Our sages tell us that one of the miracles of why the Jewish people came out of Egypt was because they didn't change their clothing. They didn't allow themselves to assimilate within the Egyptian culture. They didn't allow the externalities to permeate and change their inner way of thinking. There are many different things we do when we talk about clothing, many different concepts and ideas. And the Torah spends 43 verses in the Torah reading of the Tzava, 31 verses in this week talking about the clothing of the Kohen Gadol. Because of the impact that clothing make. Because the impact that the clothing made on the Kohen, so when he served in the Holy Temple, they were unique clothing that he wore. And at the same time, because of the clothing that we wear in our day-to-day life, the impact that they make on our life. That we shouldn't underestimate that when the Torah tells us, and Jewish law says that your clothing, that a Jew's clothing and the uniform that we wear, from a yarmulke to our tzitzis to the manas clothing, they're not just merely simplistic traditions, but they are actual things that change the way we think, believe in themselves and the way people think about us. And because of that, it keeps us, as the same way a soldier in a uniform remembers whose army is in and what his job is, so too we as Jewish people. When we dress a certain way, when the Kohen dressed a certain way, it doesn't only have an impact on the way we behave, but they also reflect on the garments of our soul. Our soul corresponds a different way. Our soul reflects a different way. That our thoughts, speech, and actions should reflect who we really are, not taking on some external image. So the next time you put something on to wear, the next time you second guess yourself, should I be wearing my yarmulke or should I put on those tzitzis? Put on a pair of tzitzis, even though nobody sees it. It may be under your clothing. But by you wearing those tzitzis, you're automatically aligning yourself with who your inside is, with who your soul truly is. You're wearing a garment of your soul. And when your soul is wearing that garment, the soldier wearing the uniform, we automatically and intrinsically have a relationship and a connection with what is true, right, and righteous. So every single one of us, we have two missions. Number one is to make sure that our external way of dress reflects our internal way of thinking and our connection to God. But even more so, to make sure that there's garments of our soul, our thought, speech, and action match our external, our relationship with God, and our reflection of our soul's absolute connection to God that's always there and can never be extinguished. Wishing you a wonderful day. Looking forward to joining you again tomorrow, discussing the weekly Torah reading at Lunch Break with the Rabbi at 1 p.m. All the best and have a great day.